It's not safe to go in the water yet. The September storm that may have added more pollution to the waters by the San Diego coast.
This was one of the worst examples of pseudoscience or junk science that I've personally seen.
Our series on expensive, unproven stem cell treatment continues. The connection between one San Diego company and the bottled water company facing a legal fight over marketing claims.
Something where you know that you're someplace special, that is not typical, and therefore, very stone-like.
Brewing up more than beer in North County. The hotel project that may pave the way for more tourism dollars and jobs in Escondido. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. There's more help coming for Haitian migrants here in San Diego. Today, Alliance San Diego leaders announced 2 new shelters. They will give hundreds someplace to stay. Many Haitians have been displaced since surviving the 2010 earthquake. Recently, thousands of the displaced who were living in other countries have come to the U.S. border. Advocates say they're fleeing unrest in places like Brazil. 5 shelters have opened their doors, but leaders say they're running out of space and resources.
And some are so fearful they don't even want to go to a shelter, so they're staying on the street. A week ago I said in a meeting, the rains are coming. Well, surprise, the rains came, and the people are still on the street. So I think as a society in Tijuana, we have to convince those folks to come into our shelters. We have to convince the government to do more.
Advocates say more help is needed with 1,000 more Haitian migrants expected to arrive tomorrow night right here on Evening Edition. Frontiers reporter Jean Guerrero shows us the other factors behind the Haitian migrant crisis. The much-needed rain in San Diego may have contaminated parts of the ocean. Officials are warning beachgoers to avoid the water. KPBS editor Tom Fudge has more.
The county declares a rain advisory anytime we see a rainfall of 0.2 inches or more within 24 hours. Keith Keyser is with the County Department of Environmental Health. He says most of the pollutions washed out to sea following a rain are called chronic contaminants, things such as metals, pesticides, and other chemicals. Long-term exposure to those is not good for you, but the bigger concern is pathogen pollution, which includes viruses and bacteria. Keyser says one exposure to a pathogen can make you sick.
So there's an acute health risk with pathogens that we just don't see with some of the other contaminants that are in stormwater runoff.
He says studies show 72 hours is enough time to mitigate coastal water pollution through dilution, wave action, and other factors. Tom Fudge, KPBS News.
Good news for boaters and water lovers alike. San Diego County's largest reservoir is back open. The San Vicente Reservoir has been closed to the public since 2008. This as county and city agencies increased its capacity. Other improvements include an upgrade to the marina, a recreational center, and a dock that is accessible to people with disabilities. California voters will need to do some homework before the election. They face a record 650 local ballot measures. San Diego election officials say there will be a 2-card ballot used in November. The ballot will include races for president, U.S. Senate, and the House of Representatives. There's also 17 state propositions and 2 countywide ballot measures. More than 960,000 mail ballots will be sent to homes starting October 11th. They're hashing out possible rules for medical marijuana in California. Health officials met with the Bureau of Cannabis Regulations in Sacramento this week. They're exploring ways to develop a regulation system for medical pot. The goal is to get rid of the don't ask, don't tell policy at state hospitals. They're taking these meetings on the road with a tour of other California cities.
I think it's helpful that we're going all around the state because in different parts of the state, people have different opinions. So at this point, we don't know what the regulations are going to look like.
The Bureau anticipates rules will be developed by January of 2018. Yesterday, we brought you the story of a man who went to Tijuana for expensive and unproven stem cell treatments. This patient was referred by a Mexican doctor to a San Diego company called Stemedica. KPBS science reporter David Wagner brings us a closer look at Stemedica's leadership, including people who previously worked for a bottled water company that face accusations of trading on junk science.
Crack open a bottle of Penta brand bottled water and pour it into a glass, and it looks like pretty ordinary water. That's because molecularly speaking, it is just plain old H2O. But not that long ago, the makers of Penta water were claiming that their water was structurally superior to normal water. They claimed that it had been proven to be absorbed by cells faster and more effectively.
It was absurd.
San Diego lawyer Stephen Morris filed a class action lawsuit in 2003 against the makers of Penta water. The case brought forward complaints of unfair business practices and false advertising.
They were actually saying that they had restructured the water such that the clusters of water molecules were smaller in their bottled water and therefore could be just hydrated quicker into the cells. I mean, it was ridiculous.
The makers of Penta water vigorously defended their patented process. They said they were able to shrink molecular clusters of water using high-energy sound waves. Two chemists at UC San Diego prepared a report about Penta for the court case. They concluded the company's claims were not only wrong, but absurd.
This was one of the worst examples of pseudoscience or junk science that I've personally seen.
Today, Jonathan Sexton is an associate professor at North Carolina Central University. Back when he was a graduate student at UC San Diego, he and his PhD advisor prepared a report analyzing what they called Penta's junk science. Sexton says water can't be molecularly restructured in any stable way. And even if it could, that would do nothing to help it hydrate cells more efficiently.
We had a good chuckle over this.
Penta water is ultra-pure energized water that may help increase antioxidant activity in your body.
The makers of Penta agreed to settle the case and stop making certain claims in their marketing. So what does any of this have to do with stem cells? Well, yesterday we told you about Jim Gass, a stroke patient who went to Tijuana based on a referral from a San Diego stem cell company called Stemedica. Gass's doctors later discovered a tumor in his spine, where Gass says he received injections of a different San Diego company's fetal stem cells. Gass says he trusted Stemedica to point him in the right direction because their leadership was full of people with medical degrees, impressive credentials, and years of experience. But KPBS has found that 3 people currently listed online as top Stemedica executives previously worked for the company that made Penta water. One of them is Stemedica's president and chief medical officer, Nikolai Tankovich. During the lawsuit, Tankovich stood by his assertion that Penta was, quote, superior to regular water in a number of ways. Stemedica spokesman Dave McGugan said he was not able to comment on this.
Because Stemedica neither uses or ever has used Penta water or any of its derivatives in its manufacturing or product development process, it would be inappropriate for us to speak about Nick's personal relationship with Penta.
KPBS has also found that the credentials of Stemedica's leaders don't always hold up to scrutiny. We looked into the background of Chief Medical Officer Nikolai Tankovich. His bio on Stemedica International's website claims he currently serves as a legate at Oxford University's Center for Science and Society Board of Trustees. But Oxford officials tell KPBS that Tankovich's name did not appear in a search of their staff records. One official said Tankovich never held an academic or any other position there. Gass says he didn't see anything about Penta water back when he was looking into the people running Stemedica. I asked him if he had known about this history, would he have been more skeptical about contacting Stemedica?
I think so. I'm not sure what I would have done, but I would have thought twice.
Gass hopes other patients thinking of traveling abroad for expensive stem cell treatments will be more educated about the risks than he was. David Wagner, KPBS News.
Our coverage of this series continues online at kpbs.org. They used a ride-paging app, and police say they were assaulted by their driver. Escondido police have arrested Jeremy Vague. They say the San Marcos man sexually assaulted multiple women in North County. The 37-year-old drove for both Uber and Lyft. He's now facing charges including kidnapping with the intent to commit robbery or rape. Authorities believe there may be even more victims and encourage anyone with any information to come forward. We reached out to both Uber and Lyft about this case, and an Uber spokesperson says, quote, "There is no excuse for the violent acts described and reported to police. We are working with law enforcement officials to fully support their investigation, and the driver has been banned from accessing the Uber app." And Lyft responded saying, "We have a strict zero-tolerance policy for any type of violent behavior, abuse, or harassment, and have permanently deactivated the driver's access to the platform." Both companies tell us that drivers undergo extensive background checks. A deadly officer-involved shooting has African-American faith leaders calling for an economic boycott of the city of Charlotte today. They're speaking out against the death of Keith Lamont Scott, who was shot and killed by an officer yesterday. Police say he was holding a gun and refusing their commands to drop it. Faith groups say Scott was just waiting for his son after school and posed no immediate threat to authorities.
And our black people who are being gunned down in the street, and we don't get no justice. So what I'm calling for, and what we're calling for, is an economic boycott of the whole city of Charlotte. Since black lives do not matter for this city, then our black dollar shouldn't matter.
The shooting also sparked protests overnight. Associated Press reporter Sandy Kozel takes us to Charlotte, where there were clashes between protesters and police.
Demonstrators in Charlotte, North Carolina shut down a stretch of Interstate 85 early Wednesday during protests over the fatal police shooting of a black man. Video appears to show people looting stopped trucks and burning the contents on the freeway. Earlier, protesters clashed with police. Authorities say at least 12 officers were hurt and that some marked police cars were destroyed. Police used tear gas to break up the crowd. This was sparked by an incident Tuesday afternoon when Charlotte police officers looking for a suspect encountered a man named Keith Lamont Scott. Police say Scott got out of his car with a gun and then got back in.
One of the officers felt a lethal threat and fired his weapon because of that.
A woman who says she is Scott's sister but didn't give her name says police got it wrong.
They jumped out their truck. They said, "Hands up. He got a gun. He got a gun. Pow, 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 pow." That's it. He had no gun. People are calling my phone saying that your brother had a gun. He had no gun. He didn't have no gun.
The officer who fired the shot has been placed on administrative leave. Detectives recovered a gun at the scene and are interviewing witnesses. Sandy Kozel, The Associated Press.
On the governor's desk right now, a question on the rights of inmates and the ability to see their loved one. One bill calls for the making of jails to use technology that would let people visit inmates via video. It's set a deadline for all facilities without an in-person visiting option to have the technology in place by 2022. Advocates rallied at the state capitol this week, saying this connection is crucial to inmate rehabilitation. The California State Sheriff's Association opposes the measure. Spotty showers may linger thanks to a tropical storm. Shanae Shocker shows us where people will see temperatures in the 80s and 90s. She has that in tonight's KPBS weather report.
Well, over the past 6 hours, we're lucky because Tropical Storm Payne has moved out of the southwest, and we're beginning to clear up as far as the effects of that storm goes. There is this depression just off of the coast a ways from Mexico, not really causing too many issues for us here. Now, as we take a look at the satellite radar for the past 6 hours of the San Diego County, we're seeing some of that moisture from Payne still begin to lift out of the area. That will continue into later in the evening. Now, as we take a closer up look, you're going to see that cloud cover as well throughout the county. And into tonight, we're going to be seeing temperatures in the upper 60s, that increasing cloud cover, which is normal for this time of year as well. It will break up tomorrow morning. Take a look at the county out in Alpine, 60 degrees there. Mount Laguna, 48 degrees, getting quite chilly, feeling like fall there. So grab a jacket when you're headed outdoors for this evening. Now take a look for the setup on Thursday. It looks complicated, but it's really not. A dip in the jet stream is going to be bringing some late October-like temperatures winds to areas of California, and just ahead of that is a frontal boundary that's ushering in some thunderstorms across the Four Corners and some spotty showers ahead up to the north. Now here for your Thursday, at least along the coast, we're starting with temperatures at 74 degrees, low clouds, and then we'll be seeing some sun, so we could be seeing some travel delays early in the morning because of those clouds. They'll break up though come Friday. Temperatures in the mid to upper 70s. We'll be on a warming trend throughout the weekend and into your work week next week. It's going to be a sunny and pleasant weekend, though, 80 and 81 degrees. Come Monday, though, we're in the upper 80s. Now, take a look as we head inland. Those temperatures will be reaching into the 90s, but on Thursday, we'll be in the upper 70s at 78 degrees, mostly sunny skies. We'll have some low clouds come Friday, and then we'll have those temperatures getting into the 80s there. On Saturday, though, you're into the upper 80s. And by Sunday, you're in the low 90s. The start of your work week on Monday, 93 degrees, very warm for this time of year. Check out the mountain forecast. Those temperatures in the 60s for your Thursday will build into the 80s come Monday. Sunshine and breezy. Now, last but not least, we have the desert sitting at Thursday, 91 degrees, plenty of sunshine. But luckily here we'll get a slight cool off come Friday, 88 degrees, but then it's going to build back and be quite warm for your weekend. We're looking at temperatures in the mid to upper 60s for Saturday, Sunday, as well as Monday. I'm Shanae Shocker, KPBS News.
The Ivy League is trying to limit early recruiting. They're urging the NCAA to change the culture of recruiting that's pushing high school student athletes to commit earlier and earlier. Currently, college coaches are not supposed to recruit until an athlete reaches its junior year, but they do thanks to loopholes. The Ivy League wants to change that by restricting telephone calls and unofficial visits. Officials say the current system puts too much pressure on high school athletes. New homes may be moving into an exclusive neighborhood in Balboa Park. A San Diego Council committee gave its unanimous blessing today to a plan to build additional houses of hospitality. The plan still requires full council approval. It calls for building 5 new cottages for international cultural organizations. The park's nonprofit House of Pacific Relations is raising funds to pay for the project. Construction may start at the beginning of next year. Experts agree there's a direct link between growing tourism and growing the city's economy. That's why Escondido leaders are ecstatic about plans for Stone Hotel. They hope it will pave the way for a larger hospitality industry and more jobs.
Its name means hidden, but with top attractions like the San Diego Zoo Safari Park and Stone Brewing, it's clear people have found Escondido. Rory Johnston is the executive director of the Escondido Chamber of Commerce. She explains in the fight for tourism dollars, Escondido attracts visitors but has trouble keeping them.
Currently, people perhaps stay on the coast or they stay in San Diego and they may kind of springboard up to North County versus the opportunity to stay here and having this as their hub.
That's why Johnston is thrilled about Stone Hotel, a 99-room boutique hotel being built on 13 acres of land adjacent to Escondido-based Stone Brewing World Bistro and Gardens.
Something where you know that you're someplace special, that is not typical, and therefore very Stone-like. And oh, by the way, we've got an amazing beer selection and one of the top brewery restaurants and gardens in the world right across the street for you.
Stone Hotel creators promise it will be an all-encompassing experience. A $26 million, 100,000 square foot build-out, blurring the lines between indoor and outdoor space, with oversized rooms and expansive balconies. Greg Cook is the co-founder and executive chairman of Stone Brewing. He's also the man credited with coming up with the concept for Stone Hotel.
It's because a lot of hotel rooms, they're fine, right? But they're a little bit generic. You wake up and you're like, oh, I could be in Chicago, I could be in Philly, I could be in Milan, and it's hard to tell. At our place, you'll know that you're at the Stone Hotel.
Hotelier Bob Rausch is the CEO of RAR Hospitality. He predicts Stone Hotel will have no trouble filling up.
Stone will attract people who may have been considering Temecula, maybe they're considering San Diego downtown, maybe they're considering Carlsbad, but they say, you know what, this beer idea and location looks good.
Rausch says Stone Hotel will be a destination in Escondido, rather than simply a place to sleep while in the city.
So Stone Brewery is a little different because their niche is going to be the leisure traveler who has the income, the disposable income to spend at a cool resort hotel that's part of the brewery.
Rausch explains from the beginning, San Diego's hospitality industry has boomed from Tijuana to Camp Pendleton along the coast. Then it expanded to sites along Interstate 15 and State Road 56 to Poway. Now he says it's finally ripe for the city 18 miles from the coast.
This market is finally where the city fathers thought it was 25 years ago. It is not yet there for people to relocate their companies. They haven't done it yet. But I think it's ripe for economic development. And the best way to get economic development is to get tourists to come to your city and see what you offer.
And that's what Johnston says it's all about, economic growth.
When you become a destination city, you want to offer a broad array of services. And when you have such an incredible part like our Center for the Arts, and yet you don't have accommodations, trying to balance that becomes a challenge, and it's a missed opportunity.
The largest industry in Escondido is retail trade, followed by construction. About 9% of employees work in accommodations and food services. Stone Hotel will add to these jobs.
It brings revitalization, it brings new jobs, it helps our economy in so many different ways.
And it fills a void.
When people come and perform on our stage, we should be able to offer them something. We should be able to offer them amazing accommodations without sending them 20 miles out of their way.
With 3 on-site bars and a 10,000 square foot rooftop garden, creators say Stone Hotel will align with the Stone Brewing business model to be amazing. Escondido leaders say their city has long been an incubator for businesses. Several have started here, but have grown and moved away. They're hoping to get new businesses through tourism, saying maybe a corporate decision maker may come to Stone Hotel for leisure, but stay for everything else the city has to offer.
Stone Hotel is set to open early 2018.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, Miles O'Brien examines the robots on the front line of fighting terrorism. That's Wednesday on the PBS NewsHour.
Keeping tabs on lawmakers in and out of the office. A new AP review shows California lawmakers took a total of 325 days off this legislative session. This was either to stay home for sick reasons or for other reasons. The review also shows these lawmakers elected to receive an estimated $56,000 collectively in taxpayer-funded living expenses. KPBS continues its online video series connecting civilians to military service members. The next installment takes a look at the times when strangers ask vets about a very sensitive topic connected to their service.
Now, it's perfectly fine to be curious about what someone's experience is, but when someone you hardly know asks if you took the life of another human being, it's really hard to see it as anything other than disrespect, at best.
When somebody asks me if I've ever killed anybody, I usually think they don't have any original questions whatsoever. They just think that everybody goes in the military and you're just killers. I did humanitarian aid primarily, it was my job.
I don't know, it's like if I asked something really intimate about you, if the first time I met you, it's like, what size underwear do you wear?
If it's someone in a bar or at a store or something and I'm wearing a Marine Corps t-shirt and they ask me that question, my response is, what's it like to have sex with your wife? And they usually have that kind of stand back look. It's like, well, that was an inappropriate question for me to ask you, right? Don't you feel that was an inappropriate question to ask me?
So what can you ask a veteran? Well, unless you know them well enough to know their blood type, anything except, you could ask instead what we did in the military or what our rate or MOS was, instead of sounding like an FNG and getting into a situation where you're foobarred and wind up MIA. Hey, okay?
To see more of the video, go to kpbs.veteranscominghome.org. The Veterans Coming Home project is made possible with support from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. The San Diego Opera wants to connect with veterans, and they're rolling out a new production in time for Veterans Day. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh has the story.
So we're out here on the USS Midway, where the San Diego Opera announced that they're partnering with 3 veterans organizations on a new opera. Soldier Songs tells the story of actual veterans from World War II and Vietnam to the Cold War. Each performance will be followed by a discussion where vets in the audience can tell their story. Davey Lind, a retired Marine Corps Master Sergeant who lost his legs in Iraq, said he appreciated the attempt to connect.
So when it comes to the extremes of combat, life and death situations, it's very difficult to find somebody that you can have an honest conversation with, where you can just talk and be heard and not judged and definitely be understood.
Soldier Songs was created by David T. Little, who used stories from his own relatives. The first performance was back in 2006 in Pittsburgh, though this is the West Coast debut. There'll be 3 performances of the opera starting on Veterans Day. From the Midway, Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
Support for military coverage is provided by the Patriots Connection, a program of the Rancho Santa Fe Foundation. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, the San Diego campus that may become the school of the future, thanks to a $10 million grant. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.